we're no longer feeling them, when the energy is no longer right, when the vibes are no longer there, then we end it. Yo, 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 my side. Big up on yourself, Welcome back to another episode of the worst relationship advice ever. You definitely should not listen to me because it's bare rubbish me a chat. You see me? And today we'll be taking a look at dating. Is dating necessary to have a happy and healthy marriage? That's the question we want to answer. No. Dating in this modern day is a mashup of biblical and worldly influences, and as a result we're ending up with a whole big mess in the church. We're finding that marriages inside the church fail at the same frequency that marriages outside the church fail, right? And we're seeing also that romantic relationships, dating, courting relationships fail within the church just as much as they fail outside of the church. So the presence of the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ in our lives is not really making that much of a difference. And maybe, just maybe, the reason for this is because we are not sticking to biblical principle. Now, when you look into the Bible, you don't really see dating. I mean, tell me, did you see where Jacob went on a date with Leah or Rachel? Did you see where Isaac and Rebecca went to the movies? Did you see where Abraham and Sarah went to a concert? No? Well, of course, those are much different times, and the technology that we have at our disposal now, they didn't have back then. And when I reflect on it, I say, boy, those were simpler times. They probably did not have to deal with all that we have to deal with today. And possibly the reason why our relationships, our marriages are not really working out the way they used to back then is because of all the complications that are added in today's day and age. For example, back then they didn't have social media. Now we have social media, and how social media impacts the relational landscape is that your partner is a lot more easily accessible than ever before. A person doesn't even really have to have your partner's phone number or email address in order to make contact with them. They just have to be able to look them up on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, and bam, they're making contact with your partner. And because we're a lot more easily accessible, when we are going through conflict and challenges in our relationship, the temptation to form a connection, spark a conversation with somebody on social media, that temptation is very strong. Yeah. And one thing can lead to a next, and you can end up with emotional affairs, and an emotional affair can matriculate into a physical affair. And so you're finding that there's a lot more unfaithfulness in today's day and age than ever before, primarily because it's just a lot easier to be unfaithful. Yeah. Another thing that has caused a shift is the industrialization of our society. There are a lot more people being focused on education and getting their bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, and when we're in school, our parents are pushing us towards learning and elevating ourselves scholastically so that we can matriculate into our careers a lot better and be better able to provide for ourselves. While we are pursuing our studies, we're encouraged not to entertain romantic relationships because that can be a distraction. Yeah. And we're actually seeing where there's a lot more women enrolled in tertiary institutions than there are men. There are a lot more qualified and intelligent women out there than there are men. when really men are the ones who are called to be the leaders of the household, the standard bearers in the family, and we don't have enough of these well-educated, well-rounded, and capable men coming out into the society to make good husbands for the good wives that are there. And so yes, things and times have changed, and we're no longer living in the Bible ages. But may I propose that if we could go back to basics, back to how things were in the Bible, maybe, just maybe, it could have a positive impact on our relational lives, especially for those of us who are Christians, those of us who want to uphold the standard of the Bible. The thing is, right now what we're finding is that we are not born Christian, of course. We're born human, and we're born again to become Christian. But the dating concept and culture is very much in our faces and very much a part of our lives. It's so difficult to step out of that to come into a more biblical culture of doing relationships. And so now we have Christian dating, and that looks different for many different people. You have some Christians who believe that it's okay to date so long as we don't have any physical interaction with each other, like no kissing, no hugging, no touching. We want to reserve that until the wedding day. And that, I would say, is pretty wise. Then you'll have some people who'll be like, yo, no man, I can't wait until the wedding, because the wedding is more than likely 2-3 years down the line, because I have to kind of feel this person out first to see if this person is a right fit before I actually marry them. And so, yo, what if on the wedding day I kiss them and realize that this person can't kiss? You know, what if after we get married we have sex and realize this person can't have a child? You know, what do I do then? And so even within the church, you'll have people be like, nah man, we can't not have sex, we can't not kiss, we can't not interact physically, because yo, I need to know that what I am getting into is gonna be acceptable for me for the rest of my life. Yeah. Now, of course, the church, the standpoint of the church is that, yo, no sex before marriage. We know that's the standpoint of the church, because, yo, that's where the complication comes in, really. The involvement of physical and sexual interaction, that's what can really complicate things. And that's where, you know, the relationship takes on a whole different dynamic once you go from being just friends, getting to know each other, you know, platonic and everything, and then you involve the romantic aspect of things. That can complicate things, especially if the two people aren't on the same wavelength, you know. We see in Corinthians 7 where Paul says, hey, if you have strong desires for somebody, you know, hurry up and get married. It's better to marry than to burn, because, you know, we're human beings, and those urges, those desires are very strong. And when you're in relationship with a person who you are attracted to, and, you know, they are attracted to you, waiting until marriage is no cake walk. It's no cake walk. It's not easy. And so I personally don't encourage people to date for long or to court for long. And I try to make a distinction between dating and courting. And some of you may disagree. I know a lot of people blur the lines, or they say, you know, me and so are dating, and what that means is that me and so are courting. For me personally, I would say dating is going out with another person in a public setting to sit down and have conversation, getting to know each other, honest and candid conversation, seeking to just garner as much information and knowledge about the person, seeking to see if you both are on the same wavelength, and, you know, can we actually have a friendship? Can we actually have a partnership? And as a result of this, I believe you can date multiple people. I believe it is okay to go out and have interactions with multiple people, so long as you're not trying to be romantically involved with any of these people, And then once you've identified that person that you connect with and they connect with you, and your purposes align, and you both have the same standards, and you both have the same boundaries, and you both are feeling like, okay, yeah, this could be the person, then now you can transition into courtship. Yeah, can transition into courtship where are having the discussion about marrying each other. Now, once you start to have this discussion, the man at least needs to have in mind the date that he wants to marry this woman, right? And he needs to be intentional about it, because you don't know, the feelings are there and they're building, and the urges are there and all of that. And so personally, I think that two people should be seeking to get married within short order once they have started courtship. Otherwise, they may fall into temptation to become sexually active. Depending on how the two people feel about sex before marriage, this can be a thing that negatively impacts their relationship after they get married. Because, as I always say, belief kills and belief cures. Whatever it is, one person in the relationship or both people believe about sex before marriage, whatever it is that they believe, if they believe that's a negative thing, a sinful thing, a thing that is going to be detrimental to their relationship in the future, then if they fall in this manner, it's going to be detrimental to their relationship in the future, right? The Bible says in Romans 14, one of the ways in which we sin is to sin against our own conscience. And so if you believe something to be wrong, if you believe something to be sinful, and you indulge in that thing against your conscience, you are guilty of a sin that you will be judged for on Judgment Day. And so it is very important for each of us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling, and know exactly why we hold the particular disposition that we hold, especially where sex is concerned, because that can make or break your relationship down the line. You know what I'm saying? So, if you are a Christian, I'm like, I'm waiting until marriage before having sex. Do not bother with the long waiting. You know what I'm saying? But I understand though that it is intimidating. You have this person in front of you. You really feel like you have a connection. You see where this could possibly be a fruitful relationship, but you don't know. What if this person is a psycho behind closed doors? What if this person is really just putting on a facade now, and then they're going to switch up on me once they get married? You don't know. You don't know. You kind of just have to step out in faith and ask God to, protect the relationship, and ask God to guide and to teach and to, do all the various things that you need for this relationship to work. Yes, because I tell you what, the people in the Bible who got married just like that, no dating or anything, no courtship or anything, their relationships worked, didn't it? It worked, because it's not so much about feeling and how this person makes you feel. That's not what's most important for the sustenance of a relationship. It's the execution of principle. Yeah, principle. Become very acquainted with that word, principle. That whether you feel good or you feel bad, whether you feel happy or you feel sad, you're gonna walk out the principle of love to your partner. And that's why in the previous season I spoke about unconditional love, unwavering commitment, because that's what's necessary for the sustenance of your relationship long term, not just for the first 2 or 3 years, And so when you think about it from that perspective, you realize that all this time that we're encouraged to take to get to know somebody before marrying them is really pointless. It's really not necessary. Because this person that you're getting to know now, once you marry them, you're going to be getting to know them even further for years and years to come. We never really stop learning about a person. And people change, people evolve over time. Yeah. Your partner, the student, is different from your partner, the doctor. And your partner, the doctor, is different from your partner, the entrepreneur. Yeah. And you have to be able to love them through the change and love them through the various seasons. I think it was Pastor Michael Todd I saw in a video once saying that dating is practice for divorce. How we go about dating now is to, become romantically involved with a person, and then when we're no longer feeling them, when the energy is no longer right, when the vibes are no longer there, then we end it and seek to move on to somebody else. How we have to deal with the heartache, the pain we cause ourselves, and we cause the other person this heartache and pain, and now having to move on and start over from scratch. If we take that same mindset into marriage, then guess what? The same thing is going to happen. Even though you exchange vows, even though there's a wonderful ceremony and you have all these pictures and videos of your wonderful wedding, the same mindset that you trained yourself to develop in your dating relationships, you bring that into your marriage, you're going to do the same thing. Your marriage is going to fail. And so I encourage you to be more focused on principles. What did we see modeled in the Bible? Two people, they got married, and that was it. We don't really see divorce in the Bible that much, even though Jesus did speak about it in Matthew 19. And he said that Moses gave you guys a permission to divorce your wives because of the hardness of your hearts, because you're not able to resolve conflict and reconcile with your partner. That is why Moses allowed you to divorce, but that was never God's intention from the beginning. That's not what God wanted. Yeah? And so we have to know in this modern day and age, adjust how we think about dating and how we go about dating to set ourselves up for happy and healthy, successful marriages. But if we're not successfully single, and if we're not doing dating and courtship with the right intentions and guided by the right principles, then when we get to that marriage bridge, we're going to have a very hard time. And it doesn't have to be hard. We just have to follow the blueprint that is laid out for us by the Bible. Now, I'll be honest with you. The Bible needs to be about this thick to really break down all the various nuances that come with human relationships, man and woman business, right? It's different for everybody because we're all different as individuals. But there are certain principles, man, that are universal. And if we apply them, we can get the results that we want. Now, of course, I'm just speaking off the top of my head. I haven't actually lived this out myself. For those of you who are single and struggling, I'm with you. I'm with you. But you know what? I'm sharing with you stuff that I want to apply in my life, that I am applying in my life right now. I'm working on my relationship with God. I'm being a lot more purposeful and intentional about pursuing my purpose in life. I am standing firm in my standards and boundaries, knowing this is who I am, this is who I need to be with, and I will not compromise on those things. I'd rather be single and content than dissatisfied in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? I'm being content with who I am now, and I'm, encouraging myself to be more open to friendships and trying to build on friendships a lot more, And so, yeah, I think dating the way it is done now in our current society is not really necessary. Yeah, it's not necessary. There are many couples out there who they met each other, they probably went on 2 dates, they got engaged, and then they got married a month later. And that all happened within 2 months. Married. And then 10 years down the line, they're still married. And the question you'd probably be tempted to ask them is, how did they know that this was their person? Maybe, just maybe, they knew themselves. and they knew what questions to ask that was most important and most pertinent to who they were. And so they made that decision. And then they probably were honest with one another, and they just continued to be honest with one another. And with both of them desiring family and desiring marriage, it worked out. Even though they didn't date for 2-3 years. That's really not necessary in my opinion. However, it can feel necessary when you don't know what you're doing, when you're just kind of trying to feel a person out and trying to see how well you guys can mesh together over a 3-year time period. That 3-year time period could have been a part of your marriage, but because you were unsure and you're trying to get sure. Now, I'm gonna say, especially to my brothers, don't bother, get involved with any woman and not be intentional about what you want your relationship to be like. If you're not seeking to marry this woman and this woman wants to be married in the future, don't waste her time. But if you don't know your boundaries and standards, you will be tempted to waste a woman's time. Gotta know what you're about, and you gotta communicate what you're about. And if the woman can't get in alignment with what you're about, then that's not your woman, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? And so if you go about things that way, you do not have to spend a lot of time dating. Yeah? That's my opinion. You probably disagree, you probably agree, I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of the Worst Relationship Advice Ever. Please subscribe, like, share, do the thing that all the other YouTubers tell you to do, right? Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again next time. Respect.